That summer, the dirt road between our cottage and the river seemed to hold the sun in its throat. And I learned to read a day by the clack of marbles on chalky stones. I was 10, or perhaps 11, with pockets full of glassy orbs, jade and cobalt, a few milky ones that looked as if they slept through a rainstorm. We played after supper, when the heat still lingered in the hedges, and the cicadas hummed like patient violins, tuning to our laughter. The road stretched out like a ribbon, and beyond it fields lay flat, as if they had forgotten to stand tall for a moment, and then remembered to. The marbles mattered in small, odd ways. They carried the weight of summer rivers, and the shine of sun-warmed fence posts. I liked the way my fingers learned the coldness of glass, the way the chalky dust stuck to the sweat on my arms. The tiny crackle of gravel underfoot, as Milo and I lined up launches and pretended we could bend the day to our will. Milo would boast a little, and I would pretend to scoff, and then we'd both nod at the circle we'd drawn with a stick, a boundary that never kept us in, but kept us hopeful. We spoke little of what we were chasing, just the tremor of luck when a marble found its way into a tiny crevice, a sight as bright as a coin tossed into air. At the edge of the lane lived Grandma Ada, a woman who wore the same apron every summer and kept a kitchen that smelled of bread and earth and rain, for reasons I didn't quite understand until later. She stood small and strong in the doorway, the hedge behind her spilling over like a green curtain, the air around her saturated with the scent of dill and warm flour. She didn't scold us for playing on the road, though I'm sure she could have. The road was her children, and we were its clumsy, bright promises. Ada would bring us lemonade in chipped glasses that rattled when you swirled them. The lemon's acidity snapped at the back of your tongue, and the sugar would linger like a sentence half-spoken, a little mercy in a glass. She would lean on the doorframe and watch us with eyes that had learned to read the world in the space, where a marble might roll, or a rock might stop a story from moving forward. "Be careful with your wins," she would say after a long sip, as if she could taste how much we needed both air and grace in the same breath. "And if you can't win, leave room for the other boy's joy, and tell him his turn will come again." It wasn't lecturing so much as a quiet, sturdy invitation to gentleness. On the days when Milo's voice carried a smirk too easily, Ada would set her glass down and tell us a little tale about a boy who kept all the marbles for himself and forgot how to listen to the road sing back to him. She spoke in the soft, even cadence of rain on a tin roof, and I listened because there was something safe in her rhythm, something that insisted the world still held a better ending if you paused to hear it. When she spoke of mercy, it wasn't a sermon, but a memory she passed along like a piece of bread, shared, simple, sustaining. The game reached a turning point one evening, when the sky bled pink and the river wore a new, quiet sheen. Milo's marble, a bright, almost aggressive blue, slid from the chalk line and skittered toward a ditch that looked shallow enough to cross, but was, in truth, a shallow stinging trap for a boy's pride. I watched it vanish with a soft splash, and the sound felt like a small apology spoken for me by the world. Milo's shoulders folded inward as if a wind had pushed them down, and his mouth pressed into a line that wanted to demand a rematch, but wouldn't dare. Ada was there, moving as if she had a map of every heart in the lane in her head. She did not rush to tell us not to cry or to shake off the sting of defeat. Instead, she poured new courage into the air with a leaning smile. "Sometimes the road takes more from us than a game ever could give," she said, not looking at Milo or me, but toward the river, where the light lay thin and merciful. if you hold on to what you learn here, how to wait, how to share, how to breathe when it's not going your way, you'll carry it farther than any marble ever travels. It wasn't a rebuke or a boast. It was an anchor dropped into the moment, a reminder that a life could be long and generous if you let it be. We didn't insist on another go that evening. We stood there with the sun drying on our skin, and the world a little larger than the day had promised. Ada reached out and pressed a cool bottle into Milo's hand, then a glass to mine, and the three of us stood in a small circle of light and shadow that pooled on the dirt like warm water. The road's heat faded into a softer glow, the cicadas' chorus thinning into something tender and almost prayerful. I can still hear the distant shout from the mill workers down the lane, and the soft clack of glass on glass as we pressed the lemonade to our lips and tasted memory rather than thirst. That night, as the house settled and the room took on the scent of old wood and sleep, Ada's words lingered in my ears like the afterglow of a lamp. I didn't know then that mercy would become the North Star of my life, but I learned something that looked like mercy in small, ordinary movements. The quiet choice to let another have a turn, the willingness to lose with a smile, the habit of pausing to see the person beside you rather than rushing toward a victory that would soon fade. I don't recall if Milo ever won a marble that week, but I remember the feeling of being held in a boundary that was generous rather than rigid. A boundary the road itself seemed to bend toward with soft, patient gravity. Years rolled forward like water over a flat rock, and I grew older, as all of us do. The world kept its own pace, and I learned to keep mine a little slower, a little kinder. There were kitchens with the warmth of bread and the murmur of people who had watched over you since you were small. And there were roads that hummed with distant laughter, and the memory of summers that refused to disappear entirely. If I'm asked what that summer gave me, I say it gave me the habit of listening to the spaces between people, the spaces where a voice can find its gentleness, where a child's question can learn to be patient, where a friend's pride can be tempered by a shared cup of lemonade. In the evenings now, I sit on a porch that looks toward a long, familiar horizon. The air smells of rain sometimes, even when it doesn't rain, and the trees lean their heads in as if listening to something I cannot quite name. The memory of that road comes back to me with the soft, dry rustle of leaves, the click of a marble landing in a circle, and Ada's voice, steady as a lighthouse, guiding us toward a larger kind of mercy. I am old enough to know how fragile a moment can be, and how enduring a simple act of patience can become, if you let it. Time teaches that life is not a single triumph, but a series of small, steady kindnesses, the kind you almost forget you performed, until one day you find them stitched into the fabric of who you are. The game of marbles was never merely a game. It was a practice in listening, in giving, in leaving room for someone else's brightness to arrive. And so I carry it with me, this unassuming map of mercy, as if the road itself, after all these years, has become a hand I can hold when the days grow long or uncertain. I am grateful for that summer's quiet curriculum, the scent of dill and bread, the river's soft, patient gleam, Ada's unassuming wisdom, the sound of distant laughter that never quite left, the feel of chalky stones warm under a child's touch, the way a loss could be met with a reminder to look up. If meaning is a thing you learn to carry, then the meaning of that memory is this: to win is sweet, but to be gentle is to keep the sweetness with you long after the game is done. And if time may pass, I have learned that it passes with a gentle companion, memory, that refuses to abandon us, returning like a friend at dusk to remind us of who we are and who we might still become. So I give thanks to the road that taught me how to stay, to the hands that learned to share, to the heart that learned to listen. The world has grown larger and my steps slower, but the